Have you ever wondered if the fire that descended on the disciples during Pentecost was more than just a miracle? Imagine a rushing wind filling the room, tongues of flame hovering above each head, and ordinary men suddenly speaking in languages they had never known. To most, it is remembered as the day the Holy Spirit came down. But what if, beneath the sacred words, there lies a universal experience that transcends religion? What if the fire of Pentecost is the same hidden force mystics in the East call Kundalini? Think of it, a sudden surge of energy rising within, an invisible current that burns away fear, awakens vision, and ignites the soul. The Bible describes fire. The yogic texts describe serpent energy. Two traditions, worlds apart, yet the images mirror each other like reflections in still water. And here is the question that may unsettle you. If the Spirit and Kundalini are two names for the same awakening, what does that mean for your own spiritual journey? Could it be that what happened in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago is not only a story of the past, but also a map for the energy slumbering inside you right now? In this journey we will step beyond doctrine and into experience. We will walk through the story of Pentecost with new eyes, trace its echoes in the wisdom of India, and uncover a truth that belongs to all humanity. So, stay with me until the end. Because if you have ever felt a shiver at the base of your spine, a warmth rising through your chest, or a light behind your eyes that seemed too mysterious to explain, then this story is not just history, it is your story. The streets of Jerusalem were alive with pilgrims. It was the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, when Jews from every nation gathered to honor the giving of the law on Mount Sinai. The city swelled with languages, colors, and prayers. Yet hidden in an upper room, a small group of followers of Jesus waited in silence. They had been promised a mystery, told to remain until power from on high would clothe them. Picture the scene, the air heavy with anticipation, hearts trembling with both faith and doubt. These men and women were not scholars, not kings, not priests. They were ordinary fishermen, tax collectors, mothers, widows, but within them burned a longing for something beyond comprehension. And then it happened. The book of Acts tells us that suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house. Imagine that moment, the walls vibrating, the air alive with unseen currents, a storm breaking not outside, but inside the room. It was not the gentle breeze of comfort, it was a force that shook them to the core. And above each head appeared what looked like tongues of fire, not consuming flames, but living fire, dancing, luminous, pure. Fire that did not destroy, but ignited. Fire that crowned them, marked them, filled them. Voices erupted. Men who had never studied Greek spoke it fluently. Women who had never known the language of Parthians proclaimed it as if born there. To the crowd outside, it seemed chaos. To those inside, it was ecstasy, an eruption of a power too vast to be contained. Some mocked, saying they were drunk. But Peter, standing with clarity, declared, "This is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. I will pour out my Spirit on all people." Pause here. Imagine yourself among them. You feel the wind rushing through your chest, the fire crowning your head, your tongue moving with words you do not understand yet cannot hold back. What would you think it was? Would you believe it was madness, or would you recognize it as the touch of something greater than yourself? But here lies the mystery that few dare to ask. Could this fire, this rushing energy, this overwhelming presence be described in another tradition, under another name? Could what they called the Holy Spirit be what yogis and mystics would later call Kundalini? To grasp the weight of Pentecost, we must remember its backdrop. 50 days earlier, fear had shattered this same group. They had watched their teacher crucified, their hopes buried in a tomb. Now, in that upper room, the very opposite of fear was born, a fire not of destruction, but of awakening. What happened next shook the world. Those touched by this force poured into the streets, and Jerusalem erupted. Witnesses were stunned. Are not all these who are speaking Galileans? Then how is it that each of us hears them in our native language? This was not mere communication, it was communion. Something transcendent flowed through them, bypassing mind and reason, uniting strangers in a shared vibration of spirit. For centuries, theologians have wrestled with this account. Was it purely divine intervention? Was it a symbol? Or was it the record of an inner transformation so profound that human language could only grasp it in images of fire and wind? Consider this: when mystics across cultures experience deep awakening, their descriptions echo the same imagery. Wind rushing through the body, fire surging upward, a crown of light blooming above the head, words flowing as if from another source. Could it be that the disciples' experience, while framed in Jewish and Christian language, belongs to a larger human pattern of spiritual ignition? Picture again the fire above their heads. It did not consume their bodies, it radiated outward, a visible sign of an invisible reality. Yogis speak of a lotus opening at the crown of the head when energy rises to its peak. Christian mystics describe a tongue of flame resting upon the soul when seized by the Spirit. Are these images not mirrors of each other, separated by distance but united by essence? Yet there is a tension here. For those who lived it, this was the fulfillment of prophecy, the living breath of God entering creation. But for those who study patterns across traditions, it is also a revelation. Humanity has always known this fire. Pentecost was not the first time, nor the last, that divine energy erupted through the human vessel. And here lies the invitation for you. If this story is more than history, if it is also a map, then the same current that rushed through that upper room may also dwell within you. The wind is waiting to stir. The flame is waiting to rise. The question is, will you recognize it when it comes? Because to truly understand what Pentecost might reveal, we must turn to another language, another land, and another tradition, the ancient teachings of Kundalini. To understand the mystery of Pentecost through another lens, we must journey eastward, into the sacred landscapes of India. For thousands of years, yogis, sages, and seekers have spoken of a hidden energy dwelling within every human being. They call it Kundalini, the coiled serpent sleeping at the base of the spine. Unlike the dramatic descent of fire described in the Book of Acts, Kundalini is often portrayed as an ascent, a rising current, yet the essence feels eerily familiar. When awakened, this energy surges upward through the spinal column, piercing centers of awareness known as chakras, until it reaches the crown of the head. There, it blossoms as radiant light, ecstasy, and expanded consciousness. Kundalini is not an abstract metaphor. Mystics describe it with astonishing consistency. They speak of heat rising through the body, visions of fire, sounds like rushing wind, and a torrent of spontaneous speech or song. These are not distant echoes of Pentecost. They are almost identical descriptions. But what is Kundalini, really? Some describe it as the primal life force, the power of creation itself residing within us. Others see it as the sleeping goddess, Shakti, awaiting union with Shiva at the crown of the head. Scientists who study altered states might call it the nervous system unlocking hidden capacities. yet no definition can fully capture it, because Kundalini is not something to analyze, it is something to experience. The ancients offered metaphors to guide seekers. One is the serpent. Imagine a snake coiled 3.5 times at the base of your spine, dormant but alive, waiting. When the time comes, the serpent uncoils and rises, bringing heat, light, and vision. Another is the flame. A spark lies hidden within you, faint and unnoticed, but when kindled, it becomes a blaze that consumes ignorance and illuminates the soul. If these images sound familiar, it is because they echo the biblical language of Pentecost. Fire descending from above, wind filling the body, words pouring forth with divine urgency. Two traditions, two vocabularies, yet both pointing to the same mystery. The human being as vessel of sacred energy. But Kundalini is not without its dangers. Yogis warn that premature awakening, without preparation or guidance, can be overwhelming. Just as fire can warm or burn, so can this energy uplift or destabilize. That is why, traditionally, Kundalini is approached with reverence, discipline, and devotion. And yet, there is also great promise. For those who awaken Kundalini, life is never the same. The mind expands, the heart opens, and a sense of divine intimacy saturates existence. To feel Kundalini is to realize that the infinite dwells within you, that heaven is not only above, but also rising from within. Across centuries, countless testimonies have emerged from those who experienced Kundalini awakening. A gentle warmth rises along the spine, a tingling in the crown, or an expansion of awareness that makes every tree, every star, every human face glow with sacredness. Whether dramatic or quiet, the essence remains the same. A force once dormant has come alive, reshaping the way one perceives reality. This is why yogic traditions insist that Kundalini is not a metaphor, but a tangible power. Just as electricity always flows through a wire, Kundalini always resides in the human body, whether asleep or active. It is our hidden inheritance, waiting for the right conditions to awaken. But how does this awakening begin? For some, it comes after years of meditation, breathwork, or devotion. For others, it erupts spontaneously during prayer, grief, or even in moments of deep surrender. Mystics have long said, the serpent rises when the soul is ready, not when the mind demands it. In this sense, Kundalini is both a gift and a mystery, never fully under human control. The effects, however, are unmistakable. When Kundalini rises, the body becomes the temple of fire. Awareness expands beyond the limits of the ego. Compassion flows more naturally. Fear loses its grip, and a deeper harmony with the universe is felt. It is as if the boundaries between self and divine dissolve, leaving only the radiant field of being. Now hold this image beside the Pentecost fire. The disciples were overcome, not by doctrine, but by experience. They trembled, spoke, burned with presence, and felt united with a power greater than themselves. Likewise, the awakened yogi is filled with movement, speech, vision, and love beyond comprehension. The parallels are undeniable. And so the meaning of Kundalini stretches beyond yoga mats and meditation halls. It is not bound to culture or religion. It is the universal flame within the human spirit. Where Christianity speaks of the spirit descending, yoga speaks of the serpent ascending. Two directions, one truth, the union of the human and the divine. Perhaps this is why so many who study both traditions come to the same conclusion, that Kundalini and the Holy Spirit may be two windows looking out onto the same radiant reality. The words differ, but the fire feels the same. And here the question gently returns to you. What if this force also lives within you, waiting to rise, waiting to crown you with the same light that shone on the disciples? What if Pentecost was never meant to be locked in history, but to remind humanity of the divine flame we each carry? When we place the story of Pentecost beside the testimonies of Kundalini awakening, the parallels begin to glow with startling clarity. It is as though two traditions, separated by continents and languages, are telling the same story through different symbols. First, the fire. In Acts, tongues of flame descend upon each disciple, resting above their heads. In yogic accounts, the energy that rises through the chakras culminates at the crown of the head, often felt as heat, light, or a burning radiance. Christian mystics speak of a flame of love resting on the soul. Yogis describe the Sahasrara chakra blossoming like a 1,000-petaled lotus of fire. Fire that does not consume, but illuminates. Next, the wind. The upper room was shaken by a sound like a violent rushing wind. This detail is not incidental. It echoes the yogic description of prana, the vital breath that moves through the subtle body. Those who feel Kundalini often report sensations of currents, breezes, or inner winds surging upward. In both accounts, the air is not just around them, it is inside them, alive and moving. Then comes the speech. At Pentecost, voices erupted in languages unknown to the speakers. It shocked the crowds, who recognized their own tongues from the mouths of strangers. Likewise, many who undergo Kundalini awakening describe spontaneous utterances, chants, songs, prayers, or even unknown languages, flowing without conscious control. In yoga, this is called mantra arising, the sound of the soul breaking free. In Christianity, it became known as speaking in tongues. Two descriptions, one phenomenon. The voice of the Spirit released. But perhaps the most profound parallel lies not in the outward signs, but in the inner transformation. At Pentecost, fear turned into courage. The disciples, once trembling and hidden, walked boldly into the streets to proclaim their vision. In Kundalini awakening, seekers speak of a newfound fearlessness, an openness to life, a conviction that they are supported by a divine current greater than themselves. In both cases, awakening is not for the sake of spectacle, it is for empowerment, for a new life. Now pause for a moment and let yourself feel the weight of this. 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, the air shook with wind and fire. For centuries in India, seekers spoke of the same fire, the same wind, rising from within. Different scriptures, different rituals, but the same human body as temple. What if these are not two separate miracles, but two revelations of one universal truth? Think of two rivers. One begins in the high mountains of the Himalayas, carrying with it the wisdom of the East. The other flows from the hills of Judea, carrying the revelations of the West. At first, they seem separate, flowing in opposite directions. But if you trace them to their source, you find the same rain, the same sky, the same ocean to which they return. And here is the invitation to you, the listener. Do you see these parallels as coincidence or as confirmation that the human spirit has always known the same flame, no matter the language? To see these parallels is to glimpse a truth that has always been waiting. The languages of East and West are not competing stories, but companion mirrors. Each shows what the other cannot fully reveal. At Pentecost, the disciples were filled with a spirit that made them speak beyond their own capacity. In yoga, Kundalini is said to awaken Vishuddha, the throat center, the place of voice and expression. When the serpent rises, words, chants, and songs pour out, not from intellect, but from a deeper well. Imagine it, a fisherman in Galilee, his mouth ablaze with words he never learned, and a yogi in India, chanting a mantra that rises unbidden from the depths of his soul. 2 moments, 1 impulse, the voice of the divine, breaking through human form. And what of the crown? In Acts, tongues of fire rested above each head. In Kundalini, the rising serpent bursts through the crown chakra, blossoming into light. The lotus blooms, the fire descends. Different directions, same destination, the human head crowned with radiance. Mystics across cultures describe this in strikingly similar terms: a halo of light, a circle of flame, a 1,000-petaled flower, the Shekinah shining upon the soul. But perhaps the most moving parallel is in the effect. Pentecost transformed fearful disciples into courageous apostles. Kundalini transforms uncertain seekers into radiant bearers of love and wisdom. Both awakenings are not ends in themselves, but beginnings of service. The energy does not arrive to glorify the individual, but to send them into the world as vessels of compassion, truth, and healing. Now pause. Let this sink in. If Kundalini and Pentecost describe the same movement of divine energy, then the Spirit of God has never been bound to one religion. The flame burns in temples and churches, in caves and cathedrals, in silent meditation, and in fiery prayer meetings. It is one fire, clothed in many traditions. Think of it like a great ocean. Christianity draws water in one cup, yoga in another. Each says, "This is life, this is truth." Yet the ocean is larger than any vessel. The Spirit cannot be contained by names. Kundalini, Holy Spirit, Shakti, Ruach. The names change, the ocean remains. And this is where the journey becomes deeply personal. If this fire is universal, then it belongs to you as well. It is not the possession of saints or yogis, priests or gurus. It is the inheritance of every human soul. The same current that filled the disciples, the same serpent that rises in yogis, pulses in your very being, waiting for recognition. So I ask you, have you ever felt it? The sudden warmth in your chest during prayer, the tingling at the base of your spine in meditation, the unexplainable tears when a hymn or mantra touched you. These are not accidents. They are whispers of the same Spirit, the same Kundalini, stirring within you. At this point in our journey, I want to hear from you. Do you see these connections? Do you feel that Pentecost and Kundalini might be 2 languages for the same awakening? Share your thoughts, your doubts, your experiences. Because this conversation is not just between East and West. It is between you and the flame within. And as we continue, we will go deeper into what happens when these rivers unite, when the wisdom of East and West reveal themselves as 2 reflections of the same divine fire. For centuries, humanity has drawn lines between religions, between cultures, between East and West. Yet the fire that awakens the soul has never respected these lines. It erupts wherever hearts are open, wherever seekers are ready. Pentecost in Jerusalem, Kundalini in India, 2 flames, 1 truth. Consider the context of the disciples. They were Jewish men and women steeped in their own tradition, yet in that upper room they experienced something that shattered boundaries. They spoke languages they did not know, connected with strangers they could not understand, and realized that the Spirit was not confined to their tribe. It was for all nations. Pentecost was already a breaking open of walls. Now, look to the yogis. For thousands of years, they spoke of Kundalini not as a private treasure, but as the universal current of life. They said every human, no matter their caste or creed, carried this serpent power within. Awakening was not about belonging to a religion, but about realizing the truth written into the human body itself. Do you see the resonance? Both traditions proclaim that divine energy is not exclusive. The Spirit poured out on all flesh, the serpent sleeping in every spine. The message is the same. The sacred is universal. Modern seekers who study both traditions often find themselves stunned by the overlap. Some Christian mystics, after experiencing deep prayer, describe sensations identical to Kundalini rising. Conversely, yogis who surrender in meditation sometimes find themselves speaking of Jesus or the Holy Spirit without ever having read the Bible. It is as though the Spirit itself refuses to be caged by human categories. Think of Saint Teresa of Avila, who wrote of an inner fire that consumed but did not destroy, lifting her into ecstasy. Think of the yogi Gopi Krishna, who described a mighty stream of energy rising like liquid fire through the spine. 2 continents, 2 centuries, the same current. At its heart, the union of East and West is not about blending religions into one vague mix. It is about recognizing that beneath the symbols lies the same essence. The flame of Pentecost and the serpent of Kundalini are both metaphors pointing to the same mystery, the divine awakening within humanity. Imagine a great temple with many doors. Christians enter through one door and call the presence within Holy Spirit. Hindus and yogis enter through another and call it Kundalini Shakti. Sufis may call it the Beloved. Buddhists may speak of the clear light. But once inside, all stand in the same luminous hall. The labels fade, the experience remains. And here is the climax. What if the time has come for humanity to stop arguing over the doors and instead marvel at the temple itself? What if Pentecost was never meant to divide Christians from others, and Kundalini never meant to separate East from West, but both were meant as invitations to the same living flame? Let this thought rest in you. It does not diminish your tradition to see it mirrored in another. It deepens it. It shows that the Spirit is not fragile, not jealous, not limited. The Spirit is abundant, overflowing, waiting to be recognized in every language, every practice, every soul. When we dare to see Pentecost and Kundalini as reflections of one flame, something profound happens. We begin to recognize a shared human heritage. The Spirit is not the property of a single creed, and Kundalini is not locked within the borders of India. Both are ways of naming the same mystery, that within every human being dwells the capacity for divine awakening. Think of the symbolism. In Jerusalem, fire descended from above. In India, the serpent rises from below. 2 directions, one meeting point, the crown of the head, the place where heaven and earth kiss. Christianity emphasizes the gift of grace, pouring downward. Yoga emphasizes the ascent of energy, striving upward. But in the end, both movements converge. The descent of spirit and the ascent of Kundalini meet in the human vessel, completing the circle of divine union. Scholars and mystics alike have noticed this. The theologian Evelyn Underhill described Christian mysticism as a spark of God lighting the soul into flame. The yogi Sri Aurobindo spoke of Kundalini as the ascent of consciousness into the divine. Do you hear the harmony? Both voices, though separated by continents, describe a fire that transforms the human into more than human, the finite into communion with the infinite. But this recognition is not meant for scholars alone. It touches you directly, because if the same fire has erupted in so many places, then you too are part of that story. It means the line between East and West is not out there, it is within you. You are both Jerusalem and India. You are both disciple and yogi. The Spirit and the serpent are not in conflict. They are waiting to rise together in your own being. Pause and imagine this in the silence of your prayer, you feel a warmth rising from the depths of your spine. In the quiet of your meditation, you sense a light descending from above. Suddenly, they meet, and you are filled with a radiance that words cannot capture. Would you call it Kundalini? Would you call it Holy Spirit? Or would you simply rest in the awe of union? This is the climax of our journey. The realization that truth is larger than the labels we cling to. Pentecost revealed that the Spirit speaks in many tongues. Kundalini reveals that the energy rises in every body. Together, they show that awakening is not foreign, not exotic, but the most natural inheritance of the human soul. So what then is our task? Not to argue whose fire is true, but to tend the flame within. Not to prove that East is superior to West, or West to East, but to discover that both have always pointed toward the same living mystery. And here, I turn to you. What door brought you to this moment? Was it the hymns of your childhood, the scriptures of your faith, the mantras of your meditation, or the silence of your longing? Whatever door you entered, you are already in the temple, and the flame that burns here is for you. The union of East and West is not a theory, it is a living invitation. It says, you belong to a larger story than you ever imagined. You are not divided, you are whole. The Spirit that descended in Jerusalem, the serpent that rises in India, they both call your name. By now you have heard the stories of Pentecost. You have glimpsed the parallels with Kundalini. You have walked through history, tradition, and symbol. But there is a truth deeper still. These mysteries were never meant to remain only as stories. They were always meant to be lived. So I invite you, not as a theologian, not as a yogi, but as a fellow traveler, to take a few minutes to turn inward. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. Simply a quiet opening, a way to let the whispers of spirit or the stirrings of Kundalini be felt within your own body. First, find a comfortable place where you can sit without distraction. Let your feet rest on the ground, your spine gently upright, your hands relaxed in your lap. Close your eyes, not to escape the world, but to open the inner vision. Now, take a slow breath in. Feel the air enter your lungs, expanding your chest, filling you with life. Exhale gently, releasing tension, releasing noise. Continue breathing like this, slow and steady, until your body feels a little lighter, a little quieter. As you breathe, bring your awareness to the base of your spine. Imagine there a gentle spark, like a tiny ember glowing in the darkness. It is not fierce or frightening. It is warm, patient, alive. With each breath, imagine this ember glowing brighter, as if your breath were feeding the flame. Then, on the next inhale, imagine that ember beginning to rise very slowly up your spine. With every breath, it moves a little higher, carrying warmth, carrying light. As it rises, it softens whatever it touches. Your lower back, your stomach, your chest, your throat, each becomes lighter, freer, more spacious. When it reaches the space between your eyebrows, pause. Imagine a soft light blooming there, like dawn breaking on the horizon. And finally, imagine the flame reaching the crown of your head. See it open like a flower, a lotus, a circle of light. Let yourself feel as though a gentle fire is resting above you, just as the disciples once felt in Jerusalem. Stay with this for a few breaths. No need to force, no need to expect. Simply notice the warmth, the tingling, the presence. Whether you call it spirit or Kundalini, let it be what it is. A reminder that the divine flame is not only in scriptures, not only in stories, it is in you. When you are ready, gently bring your awareness back to your body. Feel your hands, your feet, your breath. Open your eyes softly, carrying the light of that inner flame with you. As you return from that quiet moment, notice how simple the practice truly was. No elaborate ritual, no demanding technique, just breath, awareness, and the courage to imagine the flame within. And yet, even in its simplicity, something subtle shifts. A softness appears in the heart. A warmth lingers in the body. A sense of connection arises, not to ideas, but to experience. This is the key. What happened at Pentecost was not an intellectual debate. The disciples did not sit around a table discussing theology. They were seized by experience: wind rushing, fire descending, voices erupting. Likewise, Kundalini is not understood by words alone. It is known by living it, even in gentle glimpses. Perhaps in your practice just now you felt only a faint tingling or a lightness in your breath. That is enough, for in every ember lies the promise of fire. And perhaps, for some of you, there was a stronger sensation, a warmth rising, a pressure in the crown, or even a spontaneous sense of joy. That too is enough. Each soul awakens in its own time, in its own way. What matters most is the recognition. The flame of Pentecost, the serpent of Kundalini, is not distant. It is not locked in holy books or ancient temples. It is present, living, stirring inside you. And when you pause to listen, to breathe, to imagine, you begin to notice that you are not waiting for God to arrive. God has been here all along. Think of the disciples once more. They did not expect the Spirit to come in fire and wind. They were simply waiting, open, available. In that openness, the mystery erupted. The same is true of Kundalini. It rises not when we demand, but when we surrender, not when we force, but when we allow. So, let this brief practice be a doorway, not a conclusion, but an invitation. An invitation to live your days with greater awareness of the sacred moving through you, to feel the warmth of spirit in your chest when you pray, to notice the subtle current in your spine when you sit in silence, to recognize that every breath is a Pentecost, every heartbeat a rising Kundalini. And here is the most comforting truth. You do not need to choose between East and West, between spirit and serpent. You can honor both. You can see Pentecost not only as history, but as a mirror of your own potential. You can see Kundalini not only as yoga's secret, but as humanity's birthright. When you feel that inner flame, you are standing where the disciples once stood, where the yogis once sat, where countless seekers across time have awakened. You are part of that great story. So as we move forward, hold on to this experience. Let it remind you that awakening is not a distant possibility, but a present reality. The flame is here, the wind is here, the Spirit is here, and it is calling your name. We have walked together through a long and winding path. From the crowded streets of Jerusalem to the silent caves of India, from the tongues of fire at Pentecost to the serpent of Kundalini rising, from the walls that once divided East and West to the temple where all traditions meet. And now we arrive at a simple yet profound truth. The flame that awakened the disciples is the same flame that stirs within you. For centuries we have been taught to see these stories as separate, one belonging to Christians, the other to yogis. But when you look deeper, you discover they are not in competition. They are companions, two ways of describing the same mystery, the human being touched, ignited, and transformed by divine energy. The disciples did not remain the same after Pentecost. They walked into the world with new courage, new vision, new love. In the same way, those who feel Kundalini awaken describe a life never again ordinary. Awareness expands, compassion deepens. A sense of sacredness infuses even the smallest moments. This is the mark of true awakening, not visions or powers, but love that radiates into life. And this is where the story turns to you, because all along, this has not only been about Jerusalem or India, about apostles or yogis, it has been about you, the one listening now, the one whose heart has followed this journey. The flame does not live only in books, it lives in your breath, your spine, your soul. Think of your own life. How many times have you felt a sudden stirring, an unexplained warmth, a moment of clarity, a whisper of peace that seemed to come from nowhere? These are not accidents. They are sparks of the same fire, glimpses of the same spirit. You may have dismissed them, forgotten them, or doubted them. But what if those moments were Pentecost in miniature? What if they were Kundalini, rising in subtle form? You do not need to wait for a miracle in the sky. You do not need to travel to a holy mountain or recite endless prayers. The flame is already here. The Spirit is already breathing through you. Awakening is not about reaching something far away. It is about remembering what has always been near. So pause now and let this truth settle. You are the temple. You are the vessel. You are the place where heaven and earth meet, where fire descends and serpent rises, where spirit and Kundalini become one. If you carry nothing else from this journey, let it be this: the flame that descended in Jerusalem and the serpent that rises in yoga are not bound to history or geography. They are alive within you, waiting for recognition. And here is the beautiful paradox. When you awaken to this inner fire, you do not escape life, you embrace it more deeply. Every act of kindness becomes an offering. Every breath becomes prayer. Every glance, every touch, every word becomes part of the great song that the Spirit has been singing since the beginning of time. The disciples, once ordinary men and women, stepped into the world aflame with courage. Their voices reached across nations. Their presence carried healing. In the same way, countless seekers who have felt Kundalini rise speak of newfound clarity, compassion, and service. The true mark of awakening is not power, but love. Not spectacle, but presence. Not escape, but deeper engagement with life. So, let me ask you, what might it look like if you began to live from that flame within? How would your relationships shift if you spoke, not from fear, but from spirit? How would your daily struggles feel if you remembered that a river of divine energy flows beneath them? How would your soul expand if you trusted that awakening is not a distant dream, but a present possibility? This is the invitation of Pentecost. This is the promise of Kundalini. To show you that you are more than you think, that you are already carrying a spark of the infinite. The world may tell you that awakening belongs to saints, prophets, or yogis, but the truth is far more intimate. It belongs to you. And so we come to the end of this part of the journey, though not the end of the flame. Because once kindled, it continues to burn, guiding, illuminating, transforming. You may call it spirit, you may call it Kundalini. The name is not important. What matters is that you recognize it, honor it, and let it shine through your life. Carry this with you as you step back into your day. You are not waiting for awakening. You are awakening. The flame is already here. The only question is, will you let it burn? And so, dear friend, we arrive at the end of this journey. We have walked through the story of Pentecost, stood in the rushing wind, and beneath the tongues of fire. We have followed the serpent of Kundalini, rising through the spine, opening light within the crown. We have listened to East and West speak in their own tongues, and we have discovered that their voices echo the same eternal truth. The question now is not whether Pentecost and Kundalini are the same. The question is, what do you feel in your own soul? For the flame does not ask you to solve a riddle. It asks you to awaken. It asks you to live with greater courage, deeper compassion, and a sense of wonder at the mystery that breathes through your being. Think back to those moments in your life when you felt touched by something greater, perhaps in prayer, perhaps in nature, perhaps in silence. Those were not accidents. They were whispers of the same Spirit, hints of the same rising energy. The fire of Pentecost is not locked in history. The serpent of Kundalini is not trapped in myth. They are alive, here, now, in the quiet pulse of your heart. As you leave this story, do not leave empty-handed. Carry with you the recognition that you are part of something vast. You are the meeting place of heaven and earth. You are the temple where Spirit descends and serpent rises. You are the living Pentecost, the walking Kundalini, the flame clothed in human form. Let this awareness soften the way you see the world. The next time you look into another's eyes, remember that the same flame burns there too. The next time you feel afraid, remember that the Spirit that once turned trembling disciples into apostles is the same Spirit within you. The next time you doubt your worth, remember that you carry the serpent power, the divine inheritance of all humanity. And so I leave you with a question, not an answer. If, in the quiet of the night, you felt a gentle flame rising in you, what name would you give it? Would you call it Holy Spirit? Would you call it Kundalini? Or would you simply smile, knowing that names cannot contain the infinite? The journey does not end here. The flame continues. And if your heart has stirred during these moments together, if you have felt even the faintest warmth of that inner fire, then perhaps your soul is already asking for the next step. Follow it. Let it lead you deeper into the mystery. And if this story has spoken to you, stay with us in the journeys to come, because there are more stories, more mysteries, more awakenings waiting to be revealed. The Spirit is endless, the flame is eternal, and together we will continue to walk in its light. So, until we meet again, remember this: you are not waiting for awakening. You are awakening. The flame is within you. The wind is within you. The Spirit is within you. Let it rise. Let it burn. Let it shine.